Nutrition Hero Podcast. Igniting both the art and the science of functional medicine. Here's your host, Dr. Brad Watts.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Nutrition Hero Podcast. I'm Dr. Brad Watts. Thank you for joining me here today. Today I am coming to you from the podcast lab, as always, and with a message for you. Today is going to be all about blood sugar, specifically as it relates to predicting your future health. And so I wanted to do this just as maybe a end of year wrap up, maybe a get ready for 2021, maybe a let's let 21 be a better year, if not externally, right, with the political world and all the stuff that's going on, at least let it be a better year internally. And so today I'm happy to bring you some information, some research that came across my desk a couple of weeks back, and I gotta say, I wasn't surprised by it, but I was surprised by how accurate natural healthcare providers have been, I'll just say that, in this year of 2020. And so you'll know what I mean as I lay it out here for you, but I want to go through that. So thank you for joining me. If you are new to the podcast, if you're new to the Nutrition Hero family, make sure to hit subscribe on whatever media delivery mechanism you're getting this from, whether it be Apple iTunes or Stitcher or YouTube, whatever it is. Make sure that you reach out, hit subscribe, let you know when our new episodes are out, etc. Every 2 weeks you're going to get an episode of the Nutrition Hero Podcast. And usually it's me sitting on here doing some type of monologue like we're going to do today. And, and sometimes we get to highlight some of the movers and shakers in the industry. So I like to do that. One of the things that I want to do moving forward with Nutrition Hero Podcast is highlight, as I did last week, nutrition heroes in your own communities. Because remember, this podcast isn't about me. It's about you. It's about you just enhancing, one, your certainty, if I can put it that way. Number two, this is about you and highlighting you and your skills that you have to be able to go out and change your family and your community and your state. Ultimately, that's what it's going to take, you guys, in order for us to take this message of health and healing functional medicine and start flipping this healthcare landscape upside down. So this is about you. So if you know somebody that you think should be highlighted on the Nutrition Hero Podcast, somebody that's laying it down in their community, I'm not talking about somebody that has something to sell or anything. I'm talking about people that you think deserve to be highlighted for the work that they're doing. You let me know. All right? You can email me, brad@biogenetics.com, and get things taken care of that way. So, all right. Anyway, today what I want to do is go through an article that I read on November 30th, maybe it was even December 1st. But the title of the article is Blood Glucose on Admission Predicts COVID-19 Severity in All. Full stop. Right? Blood glucose predicts COVID-19 severity. You guys, this is amazing. It's something that we knew about, we talked about way back at the beginning of the summer after we come out of the springtime mess with COVID. We talked about blood sugar related incidents and mortality, but this study that this article is describing here it's amazing. So I'm just going to put this out here, all right? This was done in Europe. So I just want to lay this out. Europe, they got smacked, right? Their fatality rate was very high, very high. Right, so anyway, just going to put this out here, and this is out of Medscape's Coronavirus Resource Center, and I'm amazed that they even put it in there. So anyway, I'm just going to read a couple of sections of this, and then we're going to talk about what it means for us moving forward and what we can do with it to serve our patients differently. And it's amazing, right? And then I have a little bit more here for you as well, so from blood sugar perspective. So without any further ado, the author of this article, right, so this is commentary, Miriam Tucker from Medscape, right? And then the author of the articles, if you want the article link, I'll post that in the show notes here as well. So, all right, hyperglycemia at hospital admission, regardless of diabetes status. Regardless of diabetes status, let me say that one more time. Regardless of diabetes status, is a key predictor of COVID-19 related death and severity among non-critical patients. We're not talking about great Uncle Bob who's got no feet left after being bulldozed by diabetes. We're not talking about somebody that is living on a respirator because obesity and apnea is destroying their physiology. Okay, we're not talking about that person. We're talking about non-critical patients. Okay? Hyperglycemia hospital admission, regardless of diabetes status, is a key predictor of COVID-19 related death. A research from Spain finds. All right, so this is in Spain. The observational study, the largest to date, and this was done. Commentary was written on November 30th, so the largest to date to investigate this association was published online on November 23rd in the Annals of Medicine by Francisco Javier Carrasco Sanchez and his colleagues. Okay, so among more than 11,000 patients confirmed with COVID-19 from March to May in 2020, involving 109 hospitals, admission hyperglycemia independently predicted. So this means it was the only thing. This is a standalone predictor of progression from non-critical to critical condition and death regardless of prior diabetes history. Those with abnormally high glucose levels were more than twice as likely to die from the virus than those with normal readings. Twice as likely. Twice as likely. This is amazing. Absolutely stunning, actually. Those with abnormally high levels of blood sugar are more than twice as likely to die from the virus as those with normal readings. This isn't even talking about diabetic status, you guys. This is talking non-fasting. You show up, and if you have abnormal, and I'll give you the parameters here in a second, abnormal blood sugar readings, you have a twice as likely rate of mortality as those with a normal reading. They also had increased need for ventilator and intensive care unit admission, obviously. All right, so the study here, Dr. Carrasco Sanchez says, these results provided a simple and practical way to stratify risk, right? To stratify risk of death in hospitalized patients with COVID-19. Admission hyperglycemia should not be overlooked, but rather detected and appropriately treated to improve the outcomes of COVID-19 with and without diabetes. This is critical. The findings confirm those of previous retrospective observational studies, but the current study has by far the biggest number of patients involved in this kind of study to date. Right? That's amazing. 11,000 people. 11,000. However, a surprising finding, he said, was how hyperglycemia works in the non-diabetic population, and that glucose levels over 140 increase the risk of death. That's not fasting, right? What we're talking about is blood sugar instability. Blood sugar instability. Not just that you can have normal non-diabetic A1C, but the fact that your blood sugar values can go over 140 as you're entering the hospital to be, dealt with from a COVID perspective. Over 140 was an independent risk assessment for twice the mortality rate. That's stunning. The reason that's stunning is because we don't look at non-fasting blood sugar over 140 as an indicator of diabetes, especially if your A1C is 5.6. It's amazing. It's amazing. Here's another amazing part, right? In patients with diabetes, we start protocol to manage their blood sugar, right, during hospitalization at blood sugar levels over 180. However, in non-diabetic patients, blood glucose levels under 180 and even greater are usually overlooked. It means that there's not a correct follow-up of patients during hospitalization. Let's take this a step further. What they're saying is that if your blood sugar is under 180, they're not going to manage your blood sugar in the hospital if it's under 180. We're not talking fasting. Maybe you just got done at OCB, right? Old Country Buffet, and you are on your way into the hospital with a blood sugar of 179, right, they're going to measure your blood sugar on a blood chem on intake. They're going to go 179. Does this patient need medical intervention for their blood sugar? No. Right? No. When's the last time you ate, doctor? Oh, I just got done eating at OCB. Okay, that explains the 179. Let's move on. Except the medical literature now, this observational study is confirming that anything over 140, you're going to have twice the risk of death with COVID. I mean, I can't stress how amazing this is, because this is the message we've been talking about, me, 11 years now, but the people that, the shoulders I'm standing on, right, they've been talking about it for decades. Decades. Blood sugar and the inability to control blood sugar is a predictor of future health, not just in an acute circumstance like some virus that we've been dealing with in 2020. It is a future predictor of health. Right? This is what this gets me. Okay. After this study, the author says, we learned that we need to pay attention to this population who develop hyperglycemia from the beginning. What have you been doing up to this point? Right? It's like a fireman being like, oh, you know what? We did a study and we found out that if you leave open gas cans inside of a house, right, and you leave an open flame, it might be a problem. You know, we found that. Like, where has this information been? Not just talking about COVID. Where has this information been over the last 25 years? How do we let the population get to a spot where a non-diabetic person having blood sugar instability gets overlooked in the first place? It's amazing. It's amazing. Get this, all right? This study was limited in that patients who had previously undiagnosed diabetes couldn't always be distinguished from those with acute stress hyperglycemia. Why? Their body's on fire, right? We're creating large amounts of reactive oxygen species. So remember, what happens is this. You breathe in oxygen, you eat food, your body mashes the two together. It creates ATP energy. When that process also creates large amounts of reactive oxygen species, free radical damage inside of a cell, the cell would rather be alive than dead, so it limits the amount of oxygen and glucose that enter the cell. Right? To limit the amount of ATP? No. To limit the amount of free radical damage as a result of making ATP. Okay? It limits the exhaust. And so what happens is the blood sugar goes up now in the bloodstream. Right? Author is saying that they couldn't distinguish between people that didn't have or people that were undiagnosed diabetes and those that had acute stress hyperglycemia. What's going to create acute stress hyperglycemia? Well, I don't know. Maybe a virus trying to kill your physiology? Right? This is amazing. Amazing. They go on to say, unfortunately, there's a high variability in inpatient glucose management, meaning what we do to manage a patient's high blood sugar. The Working Group of Diabetes in their Internal Medicine Society is working on specific protocols, right? Get this. They're working on protocols to do to the patient. They're in like don't die mode, right? What I think we should be focusing on is let's not get to this spot mode, right? They're the firefighter that's saying, save the building. Right? What I think we should do is stop putting gas cans and open flames together in the same house. It's not that hard. It's just specific. Right? This is amazing. All right. All-cause death progress to critical care higher with hyperglycemia, obviously. Okay? A couple of things I wanted to put here. 57% of these people that they talked about in this 11,000 case study were male. 19% of these people were known diabetics. Only 19%, 1 out of 5, were known to be diabetics. Okay? Now, if you just look at that stat, known diabetics, we're not talking about pre-diabetics or those that are diabetics and they didn't know about it. We're talking 20% of the people that showed up for the hospital because they thought they had COVID, 20% of them were known diabetics. That's a huge rate, 20%. That's a huge rate, okay? Overall, all-cause mortality was 41.1% among those with admission, blood glucose levels above 180. 41% of people. That's not very good odds, people. Right? Oh my goodness. So based off of what this research article is saying, 40% of people, 41.1, 40% of people that had blood sugar values over 180 upon admission into the hospital died. Almost half. Almost half. That makes me want to yell. What in the world? Almost half. Almost. How is this not front page news? Almost half. So you mean to decrease death rates and mortality rates in COVID, everybody should be walking around with like, a diaper on their face, right? Or we should be talking about how to get people's blood sugar values normalized. This is amazing. Amazing. Now, 33% of those with glucose levels between 140 and 180 died. 33%, 140 to 180. If that's not shocking to you, I don't know what to tell you. This is not even fasting. You could get your blood sugar levels to 140 if you have the right meal right now. Guarantee it. 33%, 1 out of 3 pass away from COVID, admitted to the hospital with blood sugar values between 140 and 180. Oh, man. 15.7% for levels below 140. Now, that's still not an awesome mortality rate here, right? Still not awesome. 15% in Spain. That's pretty stinking high, right? But there are no differences in mortality rates within each blood glucose category between patients or without previous diagnosis of diabetes. What does that mean? It means that it doesn't matter if you had diabetes or not. If your blood sugar values hit one of those categories, those are your rates. Over 180, 41% death rate. Over 140, 33% death rate. Below 140, 15.7% death rate. Reactive oxygen species, free radical damage inside of the cell, is a debilitating condition, and the fact that you're seeing this show up in research about viral issues is stunning. Absolutely stunning. Stunning. All right, a couple of other things here that I just want to note. When we look at patients that have mechanical ventilation and admission to intensive care, those issues also rose with blood sugar values. And that makes sense. It only makes sense to understand this through the context of blood sugar out of control is destroying your ability to defend yourself. That's what we got to be able to look at it as, right? If we look at previous studies like the Framingham Heart study that we talk about, what's the Framingham Heart study, you say? This is a study from 2016 found in Aging Cell. And what we're looking at, what's the Framingham Heart study, you say? This is a study done back in 2016 where we took 1,349 participants and they showed that as early as 28 to 38 years of age, so that demographic, there is the ability to predict lifespan from simple clinical parameters experienced at 28 to 38 years old. We're talking blood pressure, BMI, we're talking blood sugar, body weight, right? This is amazing. Okay, so not only are we talking COVID, right, blood sugar related to COVID deaths, this is just an observational study, right, called the Framingham study, where they demonstrated that simple biometrics in these early age demographics give patients the ability to understand what their future lifespan might be. Okay, this is interesting. All right, so here's what they found. All right, different clinical measurements are predictive of lifespan in different age brackets. Specifically, blood pressure and BMI are predictive of all-cause mortality from the ages of 35 to 60, while blood sugar is predictive for all causes of mortality from the ages of 57 to 73. Moreover, we find that several of these parameters are best considered as measures of rate of damage accrual, right? So that means compounding problems over time, such as total historical exposure rather than current measurement values. What does that mean? It means that some of these values, doesn't really matter if they see your blood sugar 126 one time, but if they see a statistical average where your blood sugar is 106, right, for a decade, that's going to be a much more likely indicator of future cause of mortality. Interesting. In short, they show that simple physiological measurements have broader lifespan predictive value than indicated by previous studies, right? What are they saying? We're saying that in this instance, high blood sugar values have to be considered when you're looking at predicting the patient's future health. I think this is important because I think that this does something for a patient. It puts into context that their ability to participate in a lifestyle that's compatible with health and healing, their ability to participate in it matters. It doesn't matter if it's hard. It doesn't matter if it's not fun. It doesn't matter, right? If you're talking about living a life that you don't get destroyed by diabetes from the toes up or muted by COVID-19 in a matter of 11 days, as we talked about, your ability to participate in a lifestyle that's compatible with health and healing trumps any craving, any emotional instability that you might have, and absolutely destroys any induced lifestyle measure from a cultural perspective that you're dealing with. If you want improvement, you must consider blood sugar, right, to be a critical measurement of, am I doing a good job or not? Am I doing a good job with my lifestyle or not? Remember that chronic disease, especially when it comes to blood sugar issues, is always lifestyle plus genetics. You are not a puppet for your genetics. You induce change and expression in your genetics with the environment and the lifestyle that you place them in. Your patients need to understand this. If you haven't been participating in Biogenetics Casual Friday events as a provider, you got to get some of the slides that I've been showing and presenting here that show a patient how diet and lifestyle plus their genetics is driving them toward chronic disease or walking them away from it. Because if we're going to create chronic disease through diet and lifestyle and genetic situation, you better believe that that's how they're going to walk away from chronic disease as well. They know this in a hospital setting. The problem is that we can't take this hospital setting and change it to chronic care setting because the chronic care providers have their head so far up there, you know what, we end up in a position where now they're just medicating the symptoms ongoing and not allowing these patients the information they need to make quality decisions, because the decisions are made from the top down rather than the patient up. That is so frustrating, but ultimately is so rewarding when you visit patients and allow them to participate. What I mean by visit patients, when you visit their lifestyle with them and allow them to participate from the ground up. Here's why this decision is important. Here's why this makes a difference for you moving forward. Here's why this decision ultimately impacts your longevity of life, your quality of life, and the quality of life of your patient's family. It's amazing. It's amazing. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of those things here today. I'm going to put the links to these articles and studies in the podcast notes below, but this can be a short podcast, probably 20, 25 minutes, somewhere in there. And just wanted to give you a little bit of exposure to this. If you're currently serving patients that have diabetes, there's nothing to be afraid of. There's just work to do. And that's the message that you need to be able to tell them. There's nothing to be afraid of. There's work to do. If you're not going to participate in controlling your blood sugar and living a lifestyle compatible with health and healing, probably stay inside, right? Probably stay inside. And this is an amazing study that demonstrates that. So, all right. Thank you guys for participating in today's episode of the Nutrition Hero Podcast. I appreciate you. Thank you for subscribing and sharing it with your friends and family. I love the information that we get to describe and discuss on this channel. And the reason I love it is because it's a reflection. It shows you what that healing power that resides in the body is up to and how to work with it to enhance its function. Thank you so much, you guys, for participating. All right, blessings.